Tonight, we begin a quiet journey through one of the most remarkable civilizations in human history. Long before modern nations, before skyscrapers and highways, before the maps we know today took shape, there was Rome. What began as a small settlement beside a river in central Italy would, over the course of centuries, grow into an empire that stretched across 3 continents. Its armies marched across mountains and deserts. Its engineers built roads that connected distant lands. Its laws, language, and ideas would leave a legacy that continues to influence the world even now. But Rome was not built in a single day, nor even in a single century. Its story is one of kings and republics, senators and emperors, merchants and soldiers, victories and defeats. It is a story that unfolds slowly across generations as one city gradually became the center of a vast and interconnected world. As we travel through this history together, there is no need to remember every date or every name. Simply allow the story to carry you from one chapter to the next, through ancient streets, across distant frontiers, and into the lives of the people who called the Roman world home. So, settle in comfortably, wherever you may be. Perhaps lower the lights, adjust your blanket, and allow the concerns of the day to drift a little farther away. And before we begin our journey tonight, if you enjoy slow, atmospheric documentaries designed for relaxation, sleep, and quiet curiosity, remember to like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. It helps us continue exploring the great stories of history, science, and discovery together. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight and any requests or suggestions that you may have for future videos. Our journey begins more than 2,500 years ago on the Italian peninsula, where hills, rivers, and fertile valleys helped create the conditions for one of history's greatest civilizations. And so, as the Mediterranean world slowly emerges from the mists of the distant past, let us begin with the world that existed before Rome. The legendary founding of Rome. As the centuries fade into the distance, the beginnings of Rome become difficult to separate from legend. The earliest Romans did not leave behind detailed records of their city's birth. Instead, they passed stories from one generation to the next, tales of heroes, gods, kings, and destiny. These stories would survive for hundreds of years, becoming part of Rome's identity long before historians attempted to uncover the truth behind them. And so, the story of Rome begins not with certainty, but with a legend. According to tradition, the tale starts after the fall of the ancient city of Troy. Many years after that famous war, a Trojan prince named Aeneas is said to have escaped the burning city and sailed across the Mediterranean Sea. After a long and difficult journey, he eventually arrived on the shores of Italy. There, his descendants would establish settlements that, according to Roman belief, formed the distant roots of their civilization. Generations passed. The descendants of Aeneas ruled a kingdom in central Italy. Among them were 2 brothers. One brother seized power for himself and feared that any future heirs might challenge his rule. To prevent this, he forced his niece, a woman named Rhea Silvia, to become a priestess. Such priestesses were forbidden from having children. Yet, according to the legend, fate had other plans. Rhea Silvia gave birth to twin sons, Romulus and Remus. Their uncle viewed the children as a threat and ordered that they be abandoned beside the Tiber River. The The river, however, was swollen with water, and the basket carrying the infants drifted safely downstream rather than being swept away. Eventually, it came to rest near the base of a hill. There, the story takes its most famous turn. A she-wolf is said to have discovered the twins and cared for them. Protected by the animal and later raised by a shepherd and his wife, the boys survived and grew into strong young men. Whether this event truly happened is impossible to know. Some historians believe the story may have symbolic meaning. Others suggest it evolved from older myths told throughout the region. Yet for centuries, Romans proudly embraced the image of the she-wolf and the twins she rescued. It became one of the most enduring symbols of the city. As Romulus and Remus grew older, they eventually learned the truth about their origins. Returning to confront the ruler who had threatened them as infants, they overthrew him and restored their grandfather to power. Afterward, the brothers decided to establish a new settlement of their own, but they could not agree on where it should be built. Romulus favored one hill, Remus preferred another. The disagreement grew into a bitter dispute, and according to the traditional story, it ended in tragedy. Romulus killed his brother and became the sole founder of the new city. The settlement would bear his name, Rome. Roman writers later assigned a specific date to this event, 753 BCE. Modern historians do not know whether that exact date is correct. In fact, archaeology suggests that Rome emerged gradually from a collection of small villages rather than being founded on a single day. Yet the traditional date remained important to the Romans themselves. It marked the symbolic beginning of their civilization and gave future generations a point from which to measure their history. In those earliest years, Rome was little more than a modest community. The city occupied a series of hills overlooking a bend in the Tiber River. The surrounding landscape consisted of forests, farmland, grazing animals, and scattered settlements. Life was simple. Most people lived in small homes made from wood, mud brick, and thatch. Families worked the land, tended livestock, and depended heavily on the changing seasons. Roads were little more than dirt paths. The grand temples, forums, and monuments of later centuries did not yet exist. Yet even then, Rome possessed certain advantages. The Tiber River provided water and transportation. Nearby hills offered protection. Trade routes passed through the region, connecting inland communities with coastal settlements. Slowly, the village grew. As Rome expanded, it came into contact with neighboring peoples. Among the most influential were the Etruscans, whose civilization flourished to the north. The Etruscans introduced new ideas, technologies, and customs. They were skilled builders, metalworkers, and traders. Many aspects of early Roman culture appear to have been influenced by their neighbors. Over time, Rome became more organized and more ambitious. According to Roman tradition, the city was ruled by a succession of 7 kings. Some may have been real historical figures, while others may have been partly legendary. The stories told of rulers who built walls, drained marshes, established religious ceremonies, and laid the foundations of government. One king was credited with organizing Rome's military, another with creating religious institutions. Others were remembered for construction projects that transformed the growing settlement. As the generations passed, the city slowly evolved from a village into a small, but increasingly important regional power. Yet beneath these stories lies a quieter truth. The rise of Rome was not inevitable. At the time, there was little reason to believe that this modest settlement on the banks of a river would one day govern millions of people across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Countless other towns dotted the ancient landscape. Most would eventually disappear into history. Rome did not. Its location, its people, its opportunities, and perhaps a measure of luck allowed it to survive and grow. The legends of Romulus and Remus may not tell us exactly how Rome began, but they reveal something important about how Romans saw themselves. They believed their city was born from struggle, forged through hardship, protected by fate, and destined for greatness. Whether those beliefs were true or not, they would shape Roman identity for centuries to come. And as the small settlement beside the Tiber continued to grow, a new chapter in its history was quietly approaching. The age of kings would eventually come to an end, making way for one of the most influential political experiments the world had ever seen: the Roman Republic. The Roman Republic begins. As Rome continued to grow, the age of kings slowly drew to a close. The stories of Rome's earliest rulers mixed history with legend, making it difficult to know exactly where one ends and the other begins. Yet, by the end of the 6th century BCE, something significant appears to have changed. The Romans would later remember this period as a turning point. According to tradition, the final king of Rome was a ruler known as Tarquinius Superbus, often translated as Tarquin the Proud. Roman writers described him as powerful, ambitious, and increasingly unpopular. They claimed that he ruled without regard for the Senate, ignored traditional customs, and concentrated authority in his own hands. Whether these accounts are entirely accurate is difficult to determine. Most of the surviving histories were written centuries later, long after the monarchy had disappeared. Roman authors viewed kingship with deep suspicion and may have portrayed the final king in the worst possible light. Yet, regardless of the details, the tradition remained clear. The Romans believed that their ancestors had rejected monarchy and chosen a different path. Around the year 509 BCE, according to Roman history, the kings were expelled from the city. The monarchy was gone. Rome would never again willingly accept a king. In its place emerged a new political system that became known as the Republic. The word itself comes from the Latin phrase res publica, meaning the public affair, or the affair of the people. Unlike a monarchy, where authority rested in the hands of a single ruler, the Republic distributed power among various institutions. No one person was supposed to govern alone, at least in theory. The Romans believed that concentrating too much power in one individual created dangers. By dividing authority among multiple officials and requiring cooperation between them, they hoped to prevent tyranny from returning. At the center of the Republic stood the Senate. The Senate was not a legislative body in the modern sense. Instead, it functioned as an advisory council composed largely of Rome's most influential citizens. Its members debated policies, discussed foreign affairs, managed finances, and helped guide the direction of the state. Though the Senate's authority was often informal, its influence could be immense. Many of Rome's most important decisions began within its chambers. Each year, the Romans elected 2 chief magistrates known as consuls. The consuls served as the highest officials in the Republic. They commanded armies, presided over meetings and carried out the daily responsibilities of government. Importantly, there were always two of them. This arrangement reflected a fundamental Roman principle. Shared power was safer than absolute power. Each consul could limit the actions of the other, helping prevent either individual from becoming too powerful. The Romans developed a surprisingly complex system of offices and responsibilities. Various magistrates oversaw courts, finances, public works, and religious ceremonies. Elections were held regularly. Citizens participated in assemblies. Political careers followed established paths that ambitious Romans hoped to climb throughout their lives. Yet, despite these innovations, the Republic was far from equal. Roman society remained deeply divided. At the top stood the patricians. The patricians were members of Rome's oldest and most influential families. They possessed wealth, prestige, and considerable political influence. Many of the Republic's earliest offices were reserved exclusively for them. Below them stood the plebeians. The plebeians made up the vast majority of Rome's population. Farmers, laborers, craftsmen, merchants, and soldiers all fell within this broad category. Although they were free citizens, they often possessed fewer political rights than the patrician elite. This imbalance became one of the defining challenges of the early republic. For generations, plebeians sought greater representation and protection under the law. Their efforts led to a long political struggle that historians sometimes call the conflict of the orders. Unlike many conflicts in history, this struggle was not primarily fought on battlefields. Instead, it unfolded through negotiations, protests, reforms, and political compromise. On several occasions, plebeians organized collective withdrawals from the city, refusing to work or serve in the military until their concerns were addressed. The strategy proved remarkably effective. After all, Rome depended heavily upon the labor and military service of ordinary citizens. Gradually, concessions were made. New offices were created to represent plebeian interests. Among the most important were the tribunes of the plebs. Tribunes possessed the authority to intervene on behalf of ordinary citizens and could block certain government actions through the use of a veto. Their role became a powerful safeguard within the Roman political system. Over time, additional reforms followed. The Romans also sought greater transparency in the law itself. Previously, legal customs had often been controlled and interpreted by members of the elite. Many citizens argued that laws should be written down so everyone could understand them. In response, Rome produced what became known as the 12 Tables. Engraved on bronze tablets and displayed publicly, these laws established a foundation for Roman legal tradition. Though simple by modern standards, they represented an important step toward consistency and accountability. For the first time, citizens could see many of the rules that governed their society. While political institutions evolved, Rome itself continued to expand. The city grew larger, markets became busier, roads connected nearby communities, trade increased throughout the region. The Republic was still relatively small compared to the empire it would one day become, but its foundations were steadily taking shape. What made the Republic remarkable was not perfection. It faced corruption, inequality, and frequent political disputes. Power remained concentrated among a relatively small group of families. Many citizens continued to struggle for influence and opportunity. Yet despite these limitations, The Republic proved surprisingly resilient. Its institutions adapted, its leaders learned from experience, its citizens developed a strong sense of civic identity. The Romans came to believe that service to the Republic was both a duty and an honor. Farmers became soldiers when needed. Magistrates rotated through public offices. Generations of citizens participated in a system that, while imperfect, gave Rome remarkable stability. And as the years passed, that stability became one of Rome's greatest strengths. The city was no longer merely a collection of villages along the Tiber River. It was becoming a regional power. Its armies were growing stronger. Its influence was spreading farther. Soon, Rome would look beyond its immediate surroundings and begin extending its authority across the Italian peninsula. The quiet republic beside the river was preparing for a much larger future. A future that would transform both Rome and the ancient world itself. Conquering Italy. As the Roman Republic matured, its influence gradually extended beyond the hills and valleys surrounding the city. Rome was no longer merely a settlement beside the Tiber River. It had become a growing power in central Italy. Yet the Italian peninsula of the ancient world was not a unified nation. It was a patchwork of peoples, languages, traditions, and communities. Across the landscape stood countless towns and villages. Some were prosperous trading centers, others were fortified hilltop settlements. Many had existed long before Rome began its rise. To the north lived the Etruscans, whose civilization had once exerted tremendous influence over the region. To the south were Greek colonies that connected Italy to the wider Mediterranean world. Between them were numerous Italic peoples, including the Latins, Sabines, Samnites, and many others. Each possessed its own customs and ambitions. The Italy of this era was a complex mosaic rather than a single political entity. As Rome expanded, it inevitably came into contact with its neighbors. Sometimes these relationships were peaceful. Trade flowed between communities. Marriages connected influential families. Religious festivals brought people together. But competition for land, resources, and influence often led to conflict. Like many ancient states, Rome relied heavily on agriculture. Land was wealth. Land supported families. Land provided food for growing populations. As communities expanded, disputes over territory became increasingly common. During the early centuries of the Republic, Rome fought a series of conflicts against nearby Latin communities. Many of these struggles were relatively small by later standards. Armies were modest, campaigns were seasonal, soldiers often returned home after harvest or before planting season. Yet these early wars taught Rome valuable lessons. Military service became deeply woven into Roman society. Citizens viewed participation in defense as both a responsibility and a privilege. The Roman army of this period looked very different from the professional legions that would later become famous. Most soldiers were ordinary citizens. Farmers exchanged their tools for shields and spears when called upon. They supplied much of their own equipment and served for limited periods before returning to their fields. The army reflected the society from which it came: disciplined, practical, persistent. These qualities would become hallmarks of Rome's success. As decades passed, one challenge emerged above all others: the Samnites. The Samnites inhabited the rugged mountains of southern and central Italy. They were skilled warriors accustomed to difficult terrain and fiercely protective of their independence. The struggle between Rome and the Samnites would unfold across multiple generations. Historians know these conflicts as the Samnite Wars. The wars lasted, with interruptions, for many decades. Neither side achieved quick victories. The mountains favored local defenders. Campaigns could be slow and exhausting. Success often came through patience rather than dramatic triumph. One of the most famous moments occurred during the Second Samnite War. A Roman army became trapped in a narrow mountain pass known as the Caudine Forks. Unable to escape, the Romans were forced to surrender. According to tradition, the defeated soldiers were compelled to pass beneath a symbolic yoke, a public humiliation that remained etched in Roman memory for generations. Many states might have accepted defeat after such an event. Rome did not. Again and again, Roman armies returned to the field. Losses were absorbed, new armies were raised, defeats were studied, mistakes were corrected. One of Rome's greatest strengths was not its ability to avoid setbacks. It was its ability to recover from them. Eventually, after decades of conflict, Roman influence expanded steadily throughout much of the peninsula. Yet military victories alone do not explain Rome's success. In many ways, Rome's most important achievement was political rather than military. Unlike some conquerors who simply dominated defeated populations, the Romans often incorporated communities into an expanding network of alliances. Different cities received different arrangements. Some became full Roman citizens. Others retained varying degrees of autonomy while supporting Rome through military service. The details varied, but the result was remarkable. Rather than standing alone, Rome gradually surrounded itself with allies. Roads linked communities. Trade increased. Military obligations connected distant regions. Over time, a vast web of relationships spread across Italy. The Roman road system played an important role in this process. Although many of the most famous roads would be built later, the foundations were already being established. Roads allowed armies to move more efficiently. Merchants could transport goods more easily. Communication became faster and more reliable. Stone by stone, mile by mile, the infrastructure of Roman power expanded. Travelers crossing Italy increasingly found themselves connected to a growing Roman world. The influence of Greek culture also continued to shape the peninsula. In southern Italy, prosperous Greek cities had flourished for centuries. Their architecture, philosophy, art, and trade networks impressed many Romans. Rome would eventually absorb many of these territories, but not before learning from them. The exchange of ideas between Greek and Roman cultures would become one of the defining features of Mediterranean history. By the early 3rd century BCE, Rome faced perhaps its greatest challenge yet on the Italian peninsula. The Greek city of Tarentum sought assistance from a powerful foreign ruler known as Pyrrhus, king of Epirus. Pyrrhus crossed the sea with a well-trained army and a weapon that astonished many Romans: war elephants. Towering above the battlefield, the animals created confusion among Roman forces unfamiliar with such creatures. Pyrrhus won several victories, yet each success came at enormous cost. His losses were so severe that, according to tradition, he remarked that another victory like it would ruin him entirely. From this story comes the modern expression, Pyrrhic victory, a victory so costly that it resembles defeat. Eventually, Pyrrhus withdrew from Italy. Rome remained. The outcome marked another important milestone in Roman expansion. By the middle of the 3rd century BCE, much of Italy had fallen within Rome's sphere of influence. The transformation was extraordinary. Only a few centuries earlier, Rome had been one settlement among many. Now it stood as the dominant power across most of the peninsula. Yet Rome's leaders could not have known what awaited them beyond Italy. Across the Mediterranean Sea lay wealthy kingdoms, ancient civilizations, and powerful rivals. Among them was a great maritime city on the coast of North Africa, a city whose ships sailed across the western Mediterranean, a city whose merchants controlled vast networks of trade. Its name was Carthage, and before long, Rome and Carthage would find themselves competing for control of the ancient world. The conflicts that followed would become some of the most famous wars in history, wars that would test Rome as never before. Hannibal and the Punic Wars. By the middle of the 3rd century BCE, Rome had become the dominant power on the Italian peninsula. Its influence stretched across much of Italy. Its alliances connected distant communities. Its armies had proven resilient through generations of conflict. Yet beyond Italy lay a wider world. The Mediterranean Sea connected dozens of cultures, kingdoms, and trading cities. Ships carried grain, olive oil, metals, textiles, and ideas from one shore to another. Among the great powers of this interconnected world stood a wealthy city on the coast of North Africa. Its name was Carthage. Founded centuries earlier by Phoenician settlers, Carthage had grown into one of the most prosperous cities in the ancient world. Its merchants sailed throughout the western Mediterranean. Its harbors welcomed ships from distant lands. Its influence reached across North Africa, parts of Spain, islands in the Mediterranean, and numerous trading routes that linked the region together. Where Rome excelled on land, Carthage excelled at sea. For a time, the two powers coexisted, but as both expanded, their interests increasingly overlapped. The island of Sicily became one of the first major points of tension. Located between Italy and North Africa, Sicily occupied a strategic position in Mediterranean trade. Control of the island offered both economic and military advantages. As disputes on Sicily drew outside powers into local conflicts, Rome and Carthage found themselves facing one another. The result was the First Punic War. The term Punic comes from the Roman name for the Carthaginians, whose ancestors came from the Phoenician world. The conflict lasted for more than 2 decades. Unlike many of Rome's previous wars, this struggle forced the Republic to confront an entirely new challenge: naval warfare. At the beginning of the conflict, Carthage possessed one of the most experienced fleets in the Mediterranean. Rome, by comparison, had relatively little experience at sea. Yet the Romans responded in a way that would become familiar throughout their history. They adapted, shipyards appeared, fleets were constructed, crews were trained, mistakes were made, and lessons were learned. Gradually, Rome developed a naval force capable of competing with its rival. The war proved costly for both sides. Storms destroyed fleets, battles exhausted resources. Years passed without decisive resolution. Eventually, however, Rome emerged victorious. Carthage accepted peace terms and surrendered several important territories. The balance of power in the Western Mediterranean had begun to shift. Yet the conflict was far from over. In the years that followed, Carthage rebuilt much of its strength through expansion in Spain. There, one family rose to prominence, the Barca family. Among its members was a young man who would become one of the most celebrated military leaders in history. His name was Hannibal. According to later accounts, Hannibal's father brought him before an altar as a child and made him swear eternal opposition to Rome. Whether the story is literally true remains uncertain. What is certain is that Hannibal grew up during a period when memories of the First Punic War remained vivid. As he matured, tensions between Rome and Carthage gradually returned. Eventually, conflict erupted once more. The Second Punic War had begun. Most Romans expected Carthage to attack by sea. Instead, Hannibal chose a far more ambitious path. Gathering an army in Spain, he began a remarkable journey toward Italy. The route carried his forces across rivers, valleys, and mountains. Then came the obstacle that astonished the ancient world: the Alps. Even today, the mountains form one of Europe's most imposing natural barriers. Their peaks rise high above the surrounding landscape. Snow and ice linger for much of the year. Travel can be difficult even with modern technology. Yet Hannibal attempted the crossing with tens of thousands of soldiers, horses, and war elephants. The exact route remains debated by historians. Ancient sources provide differing accounts. What is clear is that the journey was extraordinarily difficult. Narrow mountain paths wound along steep cliffs. Cold weather challenged men accustomed to warmer climates. Supplies became scarce. Many never completed the crossing. Yet, against all expectations, a portion of Hannibal's army emerged into northern Italy. The achievement stunned Rome. The war had arrived on Italian soil. Over the next several years, Hannibal won a series of remarkable victories. Roman armies repeatedly attempted to stop him. Again and again, he outmaneuvered them. At the battles of Trebia and Lake Trasimene, Roman forces suffered significant defeats. Then came the Battle of Cannae. For centuries, military historians would study what occurred there. Through careful planning and tactical brilliance, Hannibal surrounded a much larger Roman army. The result was one of the most devastating defeats in Roman history. News of the disaster spread throughout Italy. Many observers assumed Rome would seek peace. Some believed the Republic's collapse was inevitable. Yet Rome responded in a familiar way. It endured. Rather than surrender, the Romans adapted their strategy. They avoided major confrontations whenever possible. They raised new armies. They strengthened alliances. They continued the struggle year after year. The war became a test not only of military skill, but also of patience. Hannibal remained in Italy for more than a decade. His presence cast a long shadow across the peninsula. Villages, towns, and farms experienced years of uncertainty. Generations grew up knowing that one of history's greatest commanders remained somewhere beyond the horizon. Yet, despite his victories, Hannibal faced challenges of his own. Reinforcements were limited. Supplies were difficult to maintain. Rome's network of allies proved more durable than many had expected. Slowly, the balance began to change. While Hannibal campaigned in Italy, Roman forces expanded operations elsewhere. A talented Roman commander named Scipio carried the war into Spain and eventually into North Africa itself. The conflict that had once threatened Rome now approached the heart of Carthaginian territory. Faced with this new danger, Hannibal returned home. The final major confrontation occurred near the city of Zama in North Africa. There, after years of struggle, Rome achieved victory. The Second Punic War came to an end. Carthage survived, but its power was greatly reduced. Rome had faced one of the gravest threats in its history and emerged stronger than before. In later years, a Third Punic War would bring the long rivalry to a final conclusion. Carthage would be destroyed. Rome would become the dominant power of the Western Mediterranean. Yet when historians look back on these conflicts, one figure often stands above the rest: Hannibal, the commander who crossed the Alps, the strategist who repeatedly challenged Rome, the man whose campaigns became legend. And perhaps the most remarkable lesson of the Punic Wars is not that Hannibal lost, nor that Rome won. It is that both civilizations demonstrated extraordinary determination. For decades they struggled across seas, mountains, and continents. Their contest reshaped the Mediterranean world, and when it finally ended, Rome stood poised to expand beyond anything its founders could have imagined. The republic that once governed a single city was becoming something far larger, an emerging Mediterranean empire. Masters of the Mediterranean. As the long struggle with Carthage came to an end, the Roman Republic entered a new era. For generations, Rome's attention had been focused largely on the Italian peninsula. Its armies marched across nearby mountains and valleys. Its leaders negotiated with neighboring cities and tribes. Its concerns were often local, even when they seemed significant to those who lived through them. Now, however, Rome found itself looking outward. The Mediterranean world stretched in every direction. To the east lay the ancient kingdoms of Greece, Macedonia, and Asia Minor. To the south stood Egypt, one of the oldest civilizations on Earth. Across the sea were prosperous islands, bustling ports, and trading networks that connected countless peoples and cultures. Rome was becoming part of something much larger. The destruction of Carthage removed one of the Republic's greatest rivals. Control of key territories and trade routes increasingly passed into Roman hands. Merchant ships crossed the Mediterranean carrying grain, wine, olive oil, metals, pottery, and textiles. Harbors bustled with activity. Markets expanded. Wealth flowed into the Republic at an unprecedented scale. For many Romans, the effects could be seen in daily life. Foreign goods became more common. New foods appeared in markets. Ideas traveled alongside merchants and sailors. The city of Rome itself continued to grow. Visitors arriving from distant lands brought languages, customs, and traditions from every corner of the Mediterranean. The Republic was gradually transforming from a regional power into an international one. Among the most significant developments was Rome's increasing involvement in the Greek world. Greek civilization had flourished for centuries before Rome emerged as a major power. Its philosophers explored questions of ethics, politics, and nature. Its artists created sculptures admired throughout the ancient world. Its architects designed temples whose influence would endure for millennia. Its writers produced works that continued to be studied long after their own age had passed. Many Romans regarded Greek culture with admiration. Others viewed it with suspicion, yet few could ignore its influence. As conflicts unfolded among the kingdoms that emerged after the campaigns of Alexander the Great, Rome increasingly intervened in Eastern Mediterranean affairs. Wars were fought, alliances shifted, territories changed hands. Over time, Roman influence expanded into Greece and beyond. The process was gradual. Some regions became provinces, others maintained varying degrees of autonomy while recognizing Roman authority. The Mediterranean was becoming connected through an expanding Roman system. Yet Rome's growing power created new challenges. Success brought wealth, wealth brought change. The spoils of conquest enriched many members of the Roman elite. Magnificent homes appeared, collections of art filled private residences. Luxuries that would once have seemed extraordinary became increasingly common among the upper classes. At the same time, not everyone benefited equally. Many small farmers faced difficulties competing with large estates. As territories expanded, enslaved labor became more widespread throughout parts of the Roman economy. The gap between rich and poor slowly widened. The Republic remained strong, but beneath the surface, new tensions were beginning to emerge. For the moment, however, Rome appeared unstoppable. Its roads connected distant regions, its fleets moved across the sea, its diplomats negotiated with foreign rulers, its armies defended an ever-growing sphere of influence. Travelers moving through the Mediterranean increasingly encountered evidence of Roman presence. A merchant sailing from Spain might find Roman officials in Sicily. A traveler visiting Greece might encounter Roman administrators. A trader arriving from North Africa might conduct business using Roman currency. The Republic's reach extended farther with each passing decade. Perhaps nowhere was this transformation more visible than in the city of Rome itself. What had once been a modest settlement beside the Tiber River had become one of the largest urban centers in the Mediterranean world. Its population swelled. Construction projects reshaped the landscape. Temples, public buildings, markets, and roads multiplied. The city became a destination for merchants, travelers, politicians, and adventurers alike. Every day, goods from distant lands arrived at its ports, grain from North Africa, wine from various regions of the Mediterranean, marble from Greece, metals from Spain. The entire Mediterranean seemed to flow toward Rome, yet Rome's expansion was not solely about wealth or power. It also encouraged the exchange of knowledge. Greek philosophy influenced Roman thinkers. Eastern religions spread throughout the Republic. Architectural styles blended and evolved. The Mediterranean became increasingly interconnected. Ideas moved alongside armies. Cultures interacted in ways that would shape history for centuries. The Romans themselves often viewed the Mediterranean as a unifying body of water rather than a barrier. Over time, they came to call it Mare Nostrum, our sea. The phrase reflected a growing reality. Roman influence now touched much of the Mediterranean basin. The Republic stood at the center of a vast network of territories, alliances, and trade routes. To many observers, it may have appeared that Rome had reached the height of its success. Its enemies had been defeated. Its wealth was growing. Its influence stretched farther than ever before. Yet history rarely remains still. The very successes that strengthened Rome were also creating pressures that its political system had never before encountered. Economic inequality increased, political rivalries intensified, ambitious leaders sought greater influence. The institutions that had guided the Republic for centuries would soon face challenges unlike any they had experienced before. The Mediterranean belonged increasingly to Rome, but within Rome itself, a different struggle was beginning to take shape. a struggle that would eventually threaten the Republic from within. The Republic in crisis. By the 2nd century BCE, Rome stood at the center of the Mediterranean world. Its influence stretched across vast territories. Its armies had defeated powerful rivals. Its merchants traded with distant lands. Its city had grown larger and wealthier than the founders of the Republic could ever have imagined. From a distance, Rome appeared stronger than ever. Yet beneath the surface, new challenges were quietly emerging. The Republic's success had transformed Roman society. Victories brought wealth, conquests brought resources, trade connected Rome to every corner of the Mediterranean. But the benefits of this prosperity were not shared equally. As decades passed, many members of Rome's elite accumulated enormous fortunes. Large estates expanded across the countryside. Wealthy landowners acquired more land and increased their influence. Meanwhile, many ordinary citizens struggled to keep pace with these changes. Small farmers often faced difficult circumstances. Years of military service could keep them away from their land for extended periods. Some returned home to find their farms damaged, neglected, or burdened by debt. Others discovered that large estates were increasingly dominating agricultural production. For many families, maintaining economic stability became increasingly difficult. The city of Rome itself continued to grow. People arrived seeking opportunity, markets expanded, neighborhoods became crowded, the population became more diverse and more complex than ever before. The Republic's institutions, originally designed for a much smaller state, now faced the challenge of governing a vast Mediterranean power. Questions began to emerge. Who should benefit from Rome's success? How should wealth be distributed? What responsibilities did the state have toward its citizens? And how could political leaders address growing inequality without destabilizing the Republic itself? These questions would shape the decades to come. One of the first major figures to confront these issues was Tiberius Gracchus. Born into a prominent family, Tiberius became convinced that Rome's social and economic problems required reform. He argued that public land should be redistributed to help struggling citizens and strengthen the Republic's foundation. His proposals attracted considerable support. Many Romans believed meaningful changes were necessary. Others viewed the reforms as a threat to established interests. Political debates grew increasingly intense. What had once been disagreements among citizens began to feel more like battles between competing visions of Rome's future. The tensions eventually reached a tragic conclusion. Violence erupted. Tiberius Gracchus was killed. For many Romans, the event was deeply unsettling. Political conflict was nothing new, but the use of organized violence within the city itself represented something different. An old boundary had been crossed. A decade later, Tiberius's younger brother, Gaius Gracchus, pursued reforms of his own. Like his brother, he sought solutions to the challenges facing ordinary citizens. Like his brother, he attracted both supporters and opponents. And like his brother, his efforts ended amid political turmoil and bloodshed. The deaths of the Gracchi did not solve Rome's problems. If anything, they revealed how difficult those problems had become. The Republic continued to function. Elections were held. Laws were passed. The Senate remained influential. Yet a sense of instability lingered. Political disputes increasingly carried the risk of confrontation. Compromise became more difficult. Trust began to erode. As these tensions unfolded, another important change was taking place within the Roman military. A leader named Gaius Marius introduced a series of reforms that transformed how armies were organized. Traditionally, military service had been closely connected to property ownership. Citizens often supplied their own equipment and served when required. Marius expanded recruitment and created opportunities for men who possessed fewer resources. The changes helped Rome field larger and more flexible armies, yet they also altered important relationships within Roman society. Increasingly, soldiers developed strong loyalties to the commanders who led them, rewarded them, and secured land or benefits on their behalf. Over time, these personal loyalties would have significant political consequences. The Republic was evolving in ways few fully understood. Soon, another powerful figure emerged, Lucius Cornelius Sulla. Sulla was an accomplished military commander who became involved in a fierce political struggle with his rivals. The conflict eventually escalated beyond traditional political competition. In an unprecedented act, Sulla marched his army on Rome itself. For centuries, Roman leaders had treated the city as a place where political disputes should be resolved through civic institutions. Now, an army entered the city under the command of one of its own citizens. The event shocked many observers. It demonstrated that military power could influence politics in ways previously considered unacceptable. Although Sulla eventually resigned and retired from public life, the precedent remained. Future generations would remember that a Roman army had once marched on Rome. The Republic had survived, but it had changed. Throughout these years, ordinary life continued. Farmers cultivated fields, merchants traded goods, ships crossed the Mediterranean. Children grew up in towns and villages throughout the Roman world. For many people, daily routines remained far more important than political struggles in the capital. Yet the decisions made in Rome increasingly affected distant regions. The Republic had become so large that local events could have consequences across entire provinces. Political competition grew more intense. Ambitious leaders sought greater influence. Popular support became an increasingly powerful tool. The Senate struggled to maintain authority amid shifting circumstances. The institutions that had guided Rome for centuries were being tested in new ways. No single event caused the crisis. No single individual was responsible. Instead, the Republic faced a collection of challenges that slowly accumulated over time. Economic inequality, political rivalry, military transformation, personal ambition, social unrest. Each issue reinforced the others. Like small cracks spreading through a stone wall, the problems often seemed manageable when viewed individually. Together, however, they hinted at deeper instability. Many Romans still believed the Republic would endure forever. Its traditions were ancient, its achievements were remarkable, its institutions had survived countless challenges. Yet history was moving toward another turning point. A new generation of leaders was rising. Among them were men whose names would become some of the most famous in the ancient world: Pompey, Crassus, and a young politician and military commander named Julius Caesar. The struggles of the Republic were not ending. In many ways, they were only beginning. And the fate of Rome would soon rest in the hands of individuals whose ambitions extended far beyond anything the Republic had previously known. Julius Caesar and the end of the Republic. As the 1st century BCE began, the Roman Republic remained one of the most powerful states in the Mediterranean world. Its territories stretched across vast regions, its armies defended distant frontiers, its merchants traded from Spain to the eastern Mediterranean. Yet despite its strength, the Republic continued to face the challenges that had emerged during the previous century. Political rivalries intensified, economic inequalities persisted, military commanders accumulated growing influence. The institutions that had guided Rome for generations struggled to adapt to an increasingly complex world. Into this environment stepped a new generation of ambitious leaders. Among them were 3 men whose careers would become closely intertwined: Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, known today as Pompey; Marcus Licinius Crassus, one of the wealthiest individuals in Roman history; and Gaius Julius Caesar. Each possessed considerable talent, each sought greater influence, and each understood that cooperation could sometimes achieve what competition could not. Together, they formed an informal political alliance, often called the First Triumvirate. The arrangement was not an official institution. It was a partnership of convenience, built upon mutual interests and political necessity. For a time, the alliance proved highly effective. Pompey possessed military prestige, Crassus possessed immense wealth, Caesar possessed political skill, ambition, and remarkable charisma. Working together, they helped shape Roman politics in ways that few could challenge. Of the 3, Caesar would ultimately become the most famous. Born into an old but not especially wealthy aristocratic family, he demonstrated an early talent for public life. He was an accomplished speaker, a skilled politician, and perhaps most importantly, he possessed an extraordinary ability to inspire loyalty among those who served under him. As his career advanced, Caesar secured a command in Gaul, a vast region that encompassed much of modern-day France and neighboring territories. What followed would transform both Caesar and Rome. Over the course of nearly a decade, Caesar conducted a series of military campaigns that expanded Roman influence throughout the region. His victories brought wealth, prestige, and fame. Reports from the frontier reached Rome and enhanced his reputation. His writings, known as the Commentaries on the Gallic War, provided Roman readers with detailed accounts of distant lands, unfamiliar peoples, and military operations far beyond Italy. By the end of the campaigns, Caesar had become one of the Republic's most celebrated figures. Yet success often creates new rivalries. As Caesar's influence grew, political tensions in Rome continued to intensify. The alliance that had once united Pompey, Crassus, and Caesar gradually weakened. Crassus died during a military campaign in the east. Pompey and Caesar drifted apart. Former partners increasingly viewed one another as potential threats. The Senate itself became divided. Some leaders feared Caesar's growing power, others supported him. Political disagreements hardened into opposing factions. The Republic once again found itself facing uncertainty. In 49 BCE, the situation reached a critical moment. Caesar received orders that would have required him to surrender his command and return to Rome without his army. Instead, he made a decision that would echo through history. He crossed a small river known as the Rubicon. The river itself was unremarkable, yet it marked an important legal boundary. By leading his army across it, Caesar effectively challenged the authority of those who opposed him. According to tradition, he declared that the die had been cast. Whether those exact words were spoken remains uncertain. What is certain is that civil war followed. Roman fought Roman. Former allies became enemies. The conflict spread across the Mediterranean world. Cities chose sides. Armies marched across familiar territories. The Republic entered one of the most consequential struggles in its history. Ultimately, Caesar emerged victorious. Pompey fled and was later killed in Egypt. Resistance gradually collapsed. For the first time, a single individual held a level of authority that many Romans associated with monarchy. Yet Caesar never formally declared himself king. The title remained deeply unpopular within Roman political culture. Memories of the old monarchy still lingered. Instead, Caesar accumulated a variety of offices, honors and powers that effectively placed him above traditional political rivals. He implemented reforms across many areas of government. Colonies were established, debts were addressed, administrative systems were reorganized. One of his most enduring contributions was the introduction of a new calendar. Known today as the Julian calendar, it provided a more accurate method of measuring the year and influenced timekeeping for centuries. Many Romans welcomed stability after years of conflict. Others grew increasingly concerned. They feared that the Republic's traditions were disappearing. They worried that too much authority had become concentrated in one person. Among the Roman elite, anxiety continued to spread. Eventually, a group of senators concluded that drastic action was necessary. On the 15th day of March in 44 BCE, a date remembered as the Ides of March, they carried out a plan that would become one of history's most famous political assassinations. Caesar was attacked during a meeting of the Senate. The event shocked Rome. The conspirators believed they were preserving the Republic, yet the outcome proved very different from what many expected. Rather than restoring political stability, the assassination created new uncertainty. Crowds gathered, rumors spread, old divisions deepened. The Republic once again descended into conflict. The years that followed brought further struggles for power. New alliances formed, old alliances collapsed. Several influential figures competed to shape Rome's future. Among them was a young man named Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir. Few observers initially recognized how important he would become. Yet, over time, Octavian demonstrated remarkable political skill. Patient, calculating, and determined, he steadily increased his influence. As rivalries played out across the Roman world, the Republic moved closer to another transformation. The system that had governed Rome for nearly 5 centuries was nearing its end. Caesar had not formally abolished the Republic, yet his career revealed how difficult it had become to preserve the old order. The institutions remained, the offices remained, the traditions remained, but the balance that once held them together was weakening. The Republic that had conquered the Mediterranean was slowly giving way to something new. And in the years ahead, one man would emerge from the turmoil to create a political system unlike anything Rome had known before. The age of emperors was about to begin. Augustus and the birth of the empire. In the years following the death of Julius Caesar, the Roman world entered another period of uncertainty. The Republic still existed in name, its institutions remained in place, the Senate continued to meet, magistrates continued to hold office, yet beneath the familiar structures, power was shifting. The assassination of Caesar had not restored stability. Instead, it created new rivalries and new struggles for control. Among those seeking to shape Rome's future was a young man named Octavian. At the time of Caesar's death, Octavian was only 18 years old. Many experienced politicians underestimated him. Some viewed him as little more than an inexperienced heir. Others believed he would be easily manipulated by older and more established figures. They were mistaken. Though young, Octavian possessed patience, intelligence, and an exceptional understanding of political power. Over time, he demonstrated a remarkable ability to navigate the complex and often dangerous world of Roman politics. Caesar's will had named Octavian as his adopted son and principal heir. This connection provided legitimacy, but legitimacy alone was not enough. Rome remained deeply divided. Military commanders controlled armies, political alliances shifted frequently, the future remained uncertain. To strengthen his position, Octavian joined forces with two powerful figures. One was Marcus Antonius, known today as Mark Antony, a trusted ally of Caesar and an accomplished military leader. The other was Marcus Aemilius Lepidus, another influential supporter of Caesar's faction. Together, they formed what historians call the Second Triumvirate. Unlike the earlier alliance between Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus, this arrangement possessed formal legal authority. Its members wielded enormous power. Their immediate goal was to defeat those responsible for Caesar's assassination. Civil war followed once again. The conflict culminated in a series of campaigns that ultimately secured victory for the triumvirs. Many of Caesar's former opponents were defeated. The immediate threat to their authority faded. Yet cooperation among powerful individuals rarely lasts forever. As the years passed, tensions emerged within the alliance. Lepidus gradually lost influence. The relationship between Octavian and Antony deteriorated. What had begun as a partnership evolved into a rivalry. The Roman world once again found itself divided between competing centers of power. Mark Antony spent increasing amounts of time in the Eastern Mediterranean. There he formed a famous relationship with Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt. Their alliance attracted enormous attention throughout the Roman world. Supporters praised it. Critics condemned it. Political propaganda flourished on both sides. Octavian carefully presented himself as a defender of Roman traditions. Meanwhile, Antony's opponents portrayed him as increasingly influenced by foreign interests. The reality was undoubtedly more complex, yet public perception often matters as much as reality itself. Eventually, the rivalry could no longer be contained. War became inevitable. The decisive confrontation occurred in 31 BCE near the western coast of Greece. There, at the Battle of Actium, the forces of Octavian faced those of Antony and Cleopatra. The engagement is often remembered as one of history's great turning points. When the conflict ended, Octavian emerged victorious. Antony and Cleopatra later died. No rival remained capable of challenging Octavian's position. For the first time in decades, one individual stood unquestionably at the center of Roman power. Yet Octavian understood something that many ambitious leaders had not. The Romans still distrusted monarchy. Memories of kings remained deeply unpopular. Any attempt to openly crown himself as ruler could provoke resistance. Rather than abolish the republic outright, Octavian chose a different approach. He preserved many traditional institutions while gradually concentrating authority in his own hands. The Senate remained, magistrates remained, Elections continued. Outwardly, many features of the Republic survived. In practice, however, a new system was emerging. In 27 BCE, the Senate granted Octavian a new title, Augustus. The word carried associations of reverence, dignity, and honor. It marked the beginning of a new era. Historians often regard this moment as the birth of the Roman Empire. Augustus became Rome's first emperor, though he rarely used the term in the way later rulers would. Instead, he preferred titles that emphasized service and leadership rather than kingship. The arrangement proved remarkably successful. After generations of political violence and civil war, stability returned. Roads became safer, trade expanded, administration improved. Construction projects transformed the city. Augustus famously claimed that he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. While the statement was undoubtedly intended to enhance his reputation, it reflected a genuine period of extensive building and renewal. Temples were restored, public spaces expanded, monuments rose across the city. Rome increasingly reflected the confidence of a growing empire. Beyond the capital, Augustus reorganized provincial government. Tax systems became more efficient. Military structures were standardized. Frontiers were strengthened. The empire became easier to govern and more capable of maintaining long-term stability. One of Augustus's most significant achievements involved the military itself. The Roman army was transformed into a more permanent professional force. Soldiers served for extended periods and received regular compensation. Veterans could expect rewards upon completing their service. These reforms helped reduce the political instability that had accompanied earlier military rivalries. For ordinary people across the empire, the most noticeable change was often peace. Not perfect peace, not uninterrupted peace, but a level of stability that much of the Mediterranean had not experienced for generations. Trade flourished, cities expanded, agricultural production increased, travel became easier and safer. This period eventually became known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. The term can be somewhat misleading as conflict still occurred along various frontiers. Yet compared with the turmoil that preceded it, the era represented a remarkable achievement. The Mediterranean world entered a prolonged period of relative order and prosperity. Augustus ruled for more than 4 decades. During that time, he established institutions that would shape Roman government for centuries. When he finally died in 14 CE, the transition of power occurred peacefully. This alone was extraordinary. The system he created had survived its first major test. The empire endured. The transformation was complete. The republic that had once been governed by annually elected magistrates had gradually evolved into an empire guided by emperors. Many traditional institutions remained visible. Many old customs survived. Yet Rome had entered a new age, an age of stability, an age of prosperity, an age that would see Roman influence reach heights never before imagined. The empire was no longer emerging, it had arrived, and in the generations ahead, it would experience the greatest period of power and achievement in its long history. The height of Roman power. By the 2nd century CE, the Roman Empire had reached the height of its power. The transformation was extraordinary. What had begun centuries earlier as a small settlement beside the Tiber River had become one of the largest and most influential states in human history. Its territory stretched across 3 continents. Its roads crossed mountains, deserts, forests, and plains. Its laws governed millions of people. Its influence touched nearly every corner of the Mediterranean world. For many who lived during this period, Rome must have seemed permanent, an empire as enduring as the mountains, an empire without equal. The age that followed Augustus is often remembered as one of relative stability and prosperity. Several capable emperors guided the state through decades of growth. While challenges certainly existed, the empire generally enjoyed a level of peace and order that many earlier generations could scarcely have imagined. Historians often refer to this era as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. The phrase does not imply the complete absence of war. Frontier conflicts continued, military campaigns still occurred. Yet compared to the centuries of civil wars and political turmoil that had preceded it, the empire experienced remarkable stability. Trade flourished, cities expanded, population increased, economic activity reached impressive levels. Throughout the empire, roads connected distant provinces to one another. Roman engineers constructed thousands of miles of carefully designed routes. Some crossed rugged mountain ranges, others traversed open countryside. Travelers could move farther and more efficiently than ever before. Merchants transported goods across enormous distances. Government officials communicated with distant regions. Armies could reinforce threatened frontiers when necessary. The roads became the arteries of the empire. Yet roads were only one part of Rome's remarkable infrastructure. Aqueducts carried fresh water into cities, bridges spanned rivers, harbors facilitated trade, public baths provided places for relaxation and social interaction, amphitheaters hosted public events. The Romans built on a scale that often astonished visitors. Many of their structures would survive for centuries. Some still stand today. Life within the empire varied enormously. A merchant in Alexandria experienced a very different world from a farmer in Gaul. A soldier stationed in Britain lived differently than a trader in Syria. The empire contained an extraordinary diversity of cultures, languages, and traditions. Yet despite these differences, Roman administration provided a degree of unity. Latin served as an important language in the western provinces. Greek remained widely used throughout the eastern Mediterranean. Local customs often continued alongside Roman institutions. Rather than eliminating regional identities, the empire frequently incorporated them. This flexibility contributed to Rome's longevity. People across the empire encountered Roman influence in many ways, through law, through architecture, through military service, through trade, and through citizenship itself. One of the most important developments of this era was the gradual expansion of Roman citizenship. Originally limited to a relatively small population, citizenship increasingly became available to people throughout the empire. The process unfolded over generations. As Rome expanded, more communities were incorporated into its political and legal framework. Eventually, millions of people identified themselves as Roman while still maintaining local traditions and identities. The empire's prosperity depended heavily upon trade. Merchant ships crossed the Mediterranean carrying grain, wine, olive oil, glass, pottery, spices, and countless other goods. Ports bustled with activity. Warehouses stored products arriving from distant regions. Markets offered items from across the known world. Some trade routes extended far beyond Rome's borders. Goods from India and even China occasionally found their way into Roman markets through complex networks of exchange. The empire sat at the center of a vast economic system. Meanwhile, the city of Rome itself continued to grow. At its peak, the capital may have housed more than 1 million inhabitants. This made it one of the largest cities in the ancient world. Visitors arriving in Rome encountered monumental architecture on a breathtaking scale. Temples rose above public squares. Aqueducts stretched across the landscape. Government buildings reflected imperial authority. Crowds filled streets and marketplaces. The city served as both the symbolic and administrative heart of the empire. Among the emperors of this period, several became especially admired by later generations. Historians often refer to a group known as the Five Good Emperors. These rulers presided over decades of relative stability and competent administration. Perhaps the most famous among them was Trajan. Under his leadership, the empire reached its greatest territorial extent. Roman influence stretched farther than ever before. New provinces were added. Military victories expanded imperial borders. For a brief moment, Rome governed more territory than at any other time in its history. Trajan's successor Hadrian adopted a different approach. Rather than focusing primarily on expansion, he emphasized consolidation and defense. He traveled extensively throughout the empire and oversaw numerous construction projects. One of the most famous was a defensive barrier in northern Britain. Today it is known as Hadrian's Wall. The structure symbolized an important reality. Even great empires possess limits. Not every frontier could be pushed farther. Not every territory could be conquered. Hadrian understood that preserving what Rome already possessed was often wiser than endless expansion. Later came Marcus Aurelius. Remembered as both an emperor and a philosopher, he left behind writings that continue to be read nearly 2,000 years later. His reflections explored duty, mortality, self-discipline, and the challenges of leadership. Even while governing one of history's most powerful states, Marcus Aurelius often wrote about humility and the temporary nature of human achievement. His words provide a fascinating glimpse into the mind of a ruler confronting the responsibilities of empire. Yet beneath the prosperity of this golden age, subtle challenges were beginning to emerge. Maintaining vast frontiers required enormous resources. Defending distant provinces demanded constant vigilance. Political stability often depended upon capable leadership. The empire appeared strong, but strength required continuous effort. No civilization, regardless of its achievements, remains unchanged forever. For the moment, however, those future difficulties remained largely unseen. The empire still stood at its zenith. Its cities thrived. Its roads carried travelers across continents. Its ships crossed peaceful seas. Its laws connected millions of people. From the windswept frontiers of Britain to the deserts of Egypt, Roman influence shaped daily life in countless ways. The dream of Augustus had become reality. Rome governed a world unlike any that had existed before, and for many living within its borders, it must have seemed that this remarkable age would continue indefinitely. But history was already preparing a new chapter. Beyond the horizon, challenges were gathering. The centuries of stability that had elevated Rome to greatness would eventually give way to uncertainty. The empire had reached its highest point. The question now was whether it could remain there. crisis and transformation. At the height of its power, the Roman Empire seemed almost unshakable. Its armies guarded vast frontiers, its cities flourished, its roads connected distant provinces, its merchants traded across continents. For generations, stability and prosperity had defined much of Roman life. Yet no empire remains unchanged forever. The challenges that Rome faced during the 3rd century CE did not appear all at once. They emerged gradually. Small difficulties accumulated. Unexpected pressures arose. Problems that once seemed manageable became increasingly complex. The empire remained powerful. But maintaining that power required constant effort. One challenge involved leadership itself. During earlier periods, stable transitions between emperors had helped preserve order. Capable rulers guided the empire through decades of prosperity. But after the death of Marcus Aurelius in 180 CE, political stability became harder to maintain. The empire entered a period of increasing uncertainty. Some emperors ruled successfully, others remained in power only briefly. Political rivalries intensified, military influence grew. The question of who should govern Rome became more difficult to answer. As the decades passed, the empire experienced what historians now call the crisis of the 3rd century. It was one of the most turbulent periods in Roman history. Between approximately 235 and 284 CE, dozens of individuals claimed imperial authority. Some ruled only a matter of months, others controlled only portions of the empire. Civil wars erupted. Usurpers challenged reigning emperors. Military commanders competed for power. The stability that had once seemed so secure began to weaken. Yet political instability was only one part of the challenge. Along Rome's frontiers, new threats emerged. For centuries, Roman armies had defended borders stretching thousands of miles. These frontiers crossed forests, rivers, mountains, and deserts. Protecting them required enormous resources. As neighboring peoples grew stronger and more organized, pressure increased. Along the Rhine and Danube frontiers, various Germanic groups launched raids and migrations. In the east, a new and energetic Persian state emerged. Known as the Sasanian Empire, it proved a formidable rival. Roman armies found themselves confronting serious threats on multiple fronts simultaneously. The empire remained capable of defending itself, but doing so became increasingly expensive and difficult. Economic challenges also appeared. Trade continued throughout much of the empire, but instability disrupted traditional patterns. Civil wars damaged infrastructure, military campaigns consumed resources, governments struggled to maintain reliable revenues, inflation became a growing concern, coinage was altered and reissued, prices fluctuated. For ordinary people, economic uncertainty could affect daily life in tangible ways. The experience varied greatly from region to region. Some areas remained prosperous, others suffered disruption. The empire was vast, and no single description could fully capture conditions everywhere. Disease may also have played a role in Rome's changing fortunes. Several major epidemics spread throughout the empire during different periods. Ancient sources describe outbreaks that affected cities, armies, and trade networks. Although historians continue to debate specific details, there is little doubt that disease posed a serious challenge to ancient societies. Population losses could weaken economies, reduce military recruitment, and disrupt local communities. The Roman world was no exception. For many citizens, daily life continued despite these difficulties. Farmers cultivated fields, Merchants operated businesses, families raised children, ships crossed the Mediterranean. The empire did not simply stop functioning. In fact, many regions remained remarkably resilient. What changed was the increasing frequency of crises. Problems that once occurred occasionally now seemed to occur repeatedly. The sense of permanence that had characterized the Golden Age began to fade. Yet Rome possessed one extraordinary advantage: its ability to adapt. Throughout its history, the Roman state had repeatedly reinvented itself. The transition from monarchy to republic, the transformation from republic to empire, the expansion from city-state to Mediterranean power. Again and again, Rome adjusted to changing circumstances. The 3rd century would prove no different. Among the leaders who emerged during this difficult period was an emperor named Diocletian. Ascending to power in 284 CE, Diocletian recognized that governing such a vast empire had become increasingly difficult for any single individual. The challenges were simply too great. The frontiers were too extensive. The administrative responsibilities were too numerous. In response, Diocletian introduced sweeping reforms. He reorganized government administration. He restructured military defenses. Most importantly, he divided authority among multiple rulers. This arrangement became known as the Tetrarchy, meaning rule of 4. Rather than relying upon a single emperor, the empire would be governed by a group of senior and junior rulers working together. The system was ambitious. Its goal was practical rather than ideological. The empire needed more leadership, more flexibility, and faster responses to emerging crises. Whether the arrangement would endure remained uncertain, but the reforms helped restore stability after decades of turmoil. At the same time, changes were occurring in Roman society itself. Religious life continued to evolve. New beliefs spread throughout the empire. Communities adapted to changing circumstances. Cultural traditions blended and transformed. The Roman world of the 4th century would look different from the world of Augustus or Trajan. Yet it remained recognizably Roman. The empire had survived one of the greatest crises in its history. It emerged altered but intact. Its cities still stood. Its armies still guarded the frontiers. Its laws still governed millions. The age of effortless expansion was over. A new era had begun. An era of adaptation, an era of transformation. And among the figures who would shape this changing world, one emperor would leave a legacy unlike any other. His decisions would influence not only the future of Rome, but the future of an entire civilization. His name was Constantine, and his reign would mark another profound turning point in the long history of the Roman Empire. Constantine and a new Rome. When the 3rd century crisis finally began to ease, the Roman Empire remained one of the most powerful states in the world. Its cities still thrived, its armies still guarded immense frontiers, its administration still governed millions of people. Yet the empire that emerged from this period was not quite the same as the one that had existed before. Decades of instability had revealed weaknesses within the old system. New solutions were needed, new leaders were needed, and among those leaders, none would leave a greater mark on the future of Rome than Constantine. Born during a time of political uncertainty, Constantine grew up in a world shaped by the reforms of Diocletian. The empire was no longer governed exactly as it had been during the days of Augustus. Power was increasingly shared among multiple rulers. Administrative structures had become more complex. Military responsibilities were distributed across vast regions. The Roman world was adapting to new realities. Yet even these reforms could not eliminate competition entirely. Following the retirement of Diocletian, a series of struggles emerged among rival claimants to power. Various leaders sought control of different parts of the empire. Alliances formed, alliances dissolved. The future once again appeared uncertain. It was within this environment that Constantine gradually rose to prominence. Through a combination of military success, political skill, and determination, he expanded his influence over increasing portions of the Roman world. Eventually, he emerged as the dominant ruler of the empire. Like many events in ancient history, the details of Constantine's rise are often intertwined with legend. One story became particularly famous. According to later accounts, before an important battle, Constantine experienced a vision connected to the Christian faith. The precise nature of the event remains debated by historians. Ancient sources describe it in different ways. Yet, regardless of the exact details, the story reflected a genuine transformation that was taking place. Christianity was becoming increasingly important within the Roman Empire. For much of its early history, Christianity had existed as a relatively small religious movement. Its followers often faced misunderstanding. At times, they experienced periods of persecution. Roman authorities viewed the new faith with varying degrees of suspicion. Yet despite these challenges, Christian communities continued to grow. Their numbers increased across cities and provinces throughout the empire. By Constantine's era, Christianity had become impossible to ignore. In 313 CE, Constantine and his co-ruler Licinius issued what became known as the Edict of Milan. The proclamation granted religious tolerance throughout the empire and allowed Christians to practice their faith openly. The decision marked a major turning point. For the first time, Christianity received official protection from the Roman state. The change did not happen overnight. Traditional Roman religious practices continued. Temples remained active. Ancient customs endured. The empire contained a wide variety of beliefs and traditions. Yet, a new relationship had begun to form between Christianity and imperial authority. Over the following decades, that relationship would grow increasingly significant. Constantine's influence extended beyond religion. He also reshaped the political geography of the empire itself. For centuries, Rome had stood at the center of Roman civilization. Its name was synonymous with power. Its monuments symbolized imperial greatness. Its history stretched back nearly 1,000 years, yet the practical realities of governing a vast empire had changed. Important frontiers now lay far from Italy. Trade routes connected distant regions. The eastern provinces had become increasingly prosperous and influential. Constantine recognized these realities. Rather than relying solely on the traditional capital, he established a new imperial center. The location was strategically chosen. Situated on the narrow waterway known as the Bosporus, it occupied one of the most important crossroads in the ancient world. Europe and Asia met there. Trade flowed through its harbors. Armies could move efficiently in multiple directions. The city itself had existed long before Constantine arrived. Its name was Byzantium. Constantine expanded and transformed it. New buildings appeared. Walls were strengthened. Public spaces were constructed. Gradually, the city became known as Constantinople, the city of Constantine. The creation of Constantinople represented far more than a construction project. It signaled a shift in the empire's center of gravity. The Eastern Mediterranean would play an increasingly important role in Roman history. Over time, Constantinople would become one of the greatest cities in the world. Its influence would endure for more than 1,000 years. Meanwhile, Constantine continued to oversee reforms throughout the empire. Military structures were strengthened, administrative systems evolved, economic policies adapted to changing circumstances. The empire remained complex and diverse, but it possessed renewed stability. Not every challenge disappeared. Frontier pressures continued. Political rivalries remained possible. Economic concerns persisted. Yet compared to the chaos of the previous century, the empire appeared far more secure. Perhaps Constantine's most enduring legacy involved the relationship between religion and government. His support for Christianity helped accelerate changes already underway. Churches were constructed, Christian communities expanded, theological debates became increasingly important. Questions about faith, doctrine, and authority attracted attention throughout the Roman world. One notable example was the Council of Nicaea, convened in 325 CE. Religious leaders gathered to discuss key issues affecting the growing Christian community. The event reflected the increasing importance of Christianity within imperial society. By the time Constantine died in 337 CE, the Roman Empire had been transformed, not destroyed, not replaced, transformed. Its political center was shifting eastward. Its religious landscape was changing. Its institutions were adapting to new circumstances. The empire remained Roman, yet it was becoming a different kind of Rome than the one Augustus had known centuries earlier. The changes initiated during Constantine's reign would continue long after his death. Some would strengthen the empire, others would create new challenges. History rarely moves in a straight line. Each solution introduces new questions. Each transformation opens new possibilities. As the 4th century progressed, the Roman world continued to evolve. In the East, prosperity remained strong. In the West, pressures slowly increased. Frontiers faced growing challenges. Migration reshaped entire regions. The empire that had survived countless crises would soon confront another great test, one that would ultimately divide the destinies of its eastern and western halves. The story of Rome was entering its final chapter, but the end would not arrive all at once. It would unfold gradually across generations as one part of the empire faded while another endured. The fall of the Western Empire. As the 4th century gave way to the 5th, the Roman world remained vast and complex. Its cities still stood, its roads still connected distant regions, its laws still influenced millions of lives. Yet the empire that had once stretched confidently across the Mediterranean was changing. The transformation was gradual. No single event marked the end. No single battle determined the outcome. Instead, generations of political, economic, military, and social change slowly reshaped the western provinces of the Roman world. The challenges facing the empire did not originate from one source alone. Pressure emerged from many directions. Along the frontiers, migration and movement brought new peoples into closer contact with Roman territory. Some groups sought opportunities within the empire, others sought security. Some arrived as allies, others arrived as rivals. The ancient world was becoming increasingly interconnected and increasingly unsettled. One important turning point occurred in the late 4th century. Far to the east, a powerful nomadic people known as the Huns began moving westward across the Eurasian steppes. Their arrival altered existing balances throughout Europe. Communities that had lived for generations beyond Rome's borders suddenly found themselves facing new pressures. As a result, many groups migrated toward Roman territory. Among them were the Goths. The Goths had interacted with Rome for centuries through trade, diplomacy, military service, and occasional conflict. Their relationship with the empire was complex. They were not complete outsiders. Many Goths had served in Roman armies. Many were familiar with Roman customs. Yet as larger migrations unfolded, tensions increased. In 376 CE, large numbers of Goths crossed the Danube River and entered Roman territory. The empire initially allowed many of them to settle. However, poor administration, shortages, and misunderstandings created serious difficulties. Relations deteriorated. Conflict followed. The situation culminated in the Battle of Adrianople in 378 CE. There, a Roman army suffered a major defeat. The loss shocked contemporaries. For centuries, Roman military power had seemed nearly unmatched. Adrianople demonstrated that the empire faced increasingly complex challenges along its borders. Yet even after this setback, Rome endured. The empire adapted. New agreements were negotiated. New armies were raised. Life continued. The 5th century, however, brought additional pressures. Political instability became more frequent in the western provinces. Leadership changed rapidly. Resources became increasingly strained. Defending vast frontiers required enormous effort. Communication across distant regions could be difficult. The Western government often struggled to respond effectively to multiple crises at once. Meanwhile, the eastern half of the empire remained comparatively stronger. Its cities were wealthier, its trade networks remained active, its administrative systems generally functioned more effectively. Constantinople continued to prosper. The destinies of East and West were gradually diverging. One event became especially famous in later memory. In 410 CE, the city of Rome itself was sacked by forces led by the Gothic king Alaric. For many observers, the news seemed almost unimaginable. For centuries, Rome had symbolized power and permanence. Even though emperors no longer ruled primarily from the city, its symbolic importance remained immense. The sack sent shockwaves throughout the Roman world. Yet it is important to understand what it did and did not mean. The city suffered greatly, but the empire did not immediately disappear. Governments continued functioning, armies remained active, life across much of the Roman world carried on. History is often less dramatic than memory suggests. The western provinces continued to evolve through the decades that followed. Roman institutions remained influential. Local leaders adapted to changing circumstances. Some regions maintained considerable stability despite broader political difficulties. Others experienced more profound disruption. Across Europe, old structures gradually blended with emerging societies. The process unfolded unevenly and over long periods of time. Then came another figure whose name would echo through history, Attila. Known today as Attila the Hun, he became one of the most feared rulers of his age. His campaigns affected vast regions and influenced political decisions throughout both halves of the empire. Ancient writers often portrayed him in dramatic terms, yet even Attila's impact must be viewed within a larger context. The Roman world was already changing before his rise, and it continued changing after his death. No single individual determined Rome's fate. By the middle of the 5th century, imperial authority in the West had weakened considerably. Regional leaders exercised increasing independence. Military commanders often held significant power. The Western government struggled to maintain the level of control it had once possessed. Finally, in 476 CE, a symbolic event occurred. A Germanic leader named Odoacer deposed a young Western emperor known as Romulus Augustulus. The event is traditionally used by historians as the end date of the Western Roman Empire. The symbolism was powerful. The last Western emperor had been removed from power. A political institution that traced its origins back centuries had come to an end. Yet even this famous date can be misleading. Most people living at the time likely did not wake up on the following morning believing they had entered an entirely new age. Cities still existed. Trade continued. Farmers worked fields. Local governments functioned. Many Roman traditions survived. History rarely changes overnight. The Western imperial government disappeared. Roman civilization did not. Its influence remained deeply woven into the societies that followed. Roman law endured. Roman roads continued to be used. Roman languages evolved into new forms. Roman ideas shaped future kingdoms. Even as political authority fragmented, cultural continuity remained surprisingly strong. Meanwhile, in the East, the Roman Empire continued. From its capital at Constantinople, emperors still governed a powerful state. Its citizens continued to call themselves Romans. Its institutions preserved centuries of tradition. Modern historians often refer to this state as the Byzantine Empire, but its inhabitants viewed it as the continuation of Rome itself. For nearly another 1,000 years, the Eastern Empire would survive. The story of Rome, therefore, does not end neatly in 476. It changes, it transforms, it continues in new forms. The Western Empire faded gradually into history. The Eastern Empire carried the Roman legacy forward. And throughout Europe, North Africa, and the Mediterranean, the influence of Rome remained visible long after its political structures had evolved into something new. The age of emperors in the West had ended, but the legacy of Rome was only beginning. Its ideas, laws, languages, architecture, and traditions would shape the world for centuries to come. The empire itself might pass away, yet Rome, in many ways, would never truly disappear. The eternal legacy of Rome. As the sun slowly set on the Western Roman Empire, the world that Rome had shaped did not disappear. The emperors of the West faded into history. Ancient institutions evolved into new forms. Borders shifted. Kingdoms rose and fell. Yet the influence of Rome continued its long journey through time. In many ways, the story of Rome never truly ended. Its roads remained. For centuries after imperial authority had vanished from much of Western Europe, travelers continued to follow routes first laid down by Roman engineers. Stone bridges still crossed rivers. Ancient milestones still marked distances. The pathways that once connected an empire continued to connect the societies that followed. Its laws endured. Roman legal traditions influenced generations of lawmakers and scholars. Concepts developed in the ancient world found their way into medieval kingdoms, early modern states, and eventually into legal systems that continue to function today. Many of the principles that shape modern government trace part of their history back to Rome. Its language survived. Latin, once spoken across much of the empire, gradually evolved into new languages: Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Romanian. Though centuries transformed them, each carries echoes of the language spoken in Roman streets long ago. Even English contains thousands of words that ultimately derive from Latin roots. Every day, millions of people use Roman words without realizing their ancient origins. Its architecture inspired generations. Across Europe and beyond, builders studied Roman designs. Arches, domes, columns, and public squares continued to influence construction for centuries. Government buildings, museums, universities, and monuments still reflect ideas first developed in the Roman world. The empire itself may have vanished, but its visual language remains all around us. Its ideas endured as well. The Roman Republic inspired political thinkers across generations. Statesmen, philosophers, and reformers looked back to Rome when considering questions of citizenship, law, representation, and public service. The debates that once filled the Senate have echoes in political discussions even now. Its history became a source of fascination. Medieval scholars copied Roman texts. Renaissance artists studied Roman sculpture. Writers, historians, and philosophers returned again and again to the story of Rome in search of lessons, warnings, and inspiration. Each generation discovered something new within the ancient past. Meanwhile, in the East, the Roman story continued far longer than many people realize. From the great city of Constantinople, emperors ruled for centuries after the fall of the Western Empire. Citizens still called themselves Romans. Ancient traditions remained alive. The empire adapted and evolved, preserving elements of Roman civilization deep into the medieval world. The Roman legacy traveled through many paths: through religion, through trade, through education, through art, through law, through memory. Like a river dividing into countless streams, its influence spread in directions that even the emperors themselves could never have imagined. Today, traces of Rome can still be found throughout the world, in weathered ruins standing beneath open skies, in forgotten roads winding across quiet countryside, in ancient inscriptions carved into stone, in legal systems, in languages, in architecture, and in ideas that continue to shape modern civilization. Yet perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Rome's story is its scale. For more than 1,000 years, if one includes both the Republic and Empire, generations of people lived, worked, traded, governed, worshipped, built, and dreamed beneath the influence of Rome. Entire lifetimes unfolded within its long history. Children became grandparents, cities rose, empires changed, the world transformed around it, and still Rome endured. When we look back upon the Roman Empire today, it can be tempting to focus on famous emperors, great battles, and dramatic events. Yet most Romans never commanded armies, most never sat in the Senate, most never shaped the course of history. Instead, they lived ordinary lives. Farmers tended fields, merchants opened shops, sailors crossed the sea, teachers instructed students, families gathered for meals, children played in streets and courtyards. The empire was built not only by great leaders, but by millions of ordinary people whose names have long been forgotten. Their lives formed the true foundation of Rome, And perhaps that is why the story remains so compelling. Rome was immense, powerful, ambitious, at times brilliant, at times flawed. It experienced triumph and tragedy, prosperity and crisis, expansion and transformation. Yet beneath all of those changes was something deeply human, a civilization seeking order, seeking meaning, seeking a place in the world. The Roman Empire eventually passed into history, but its legacy became part of the foundation upon which much of the modern world was built. And so, as our journey through Rome comes to an end, the ancient roads continue onward. The marble temples fade into memory. The voices of senators and emperors grow quiet. The ships of the Mediterranean disappear beyond the horizon. Yet the echoes remain, carried across centuries, carried across continents, carried into the present day. The empire is gone, but Rome, in countless ways, is still with us, and perhaps it always will be.